Science is incredible, but there is much it simply can't explain. And when people see, hear, or believe something unexplained, science finds itself trying to prove things don't exist, and that's just impossible. And here, you're going to see exactly that. Impossible things that actually exist. From raining animals to ice that burns, these things will absolutely leave you speechless. Ball lightning, the impossible phenomenon. Well, as cool as lightning is, it's super rare. While Catatumbo lightning in Lake Maracaibo is a rare and hard-to-believe phenomenon, ball lightning feels even more impossible because, unlike ordinary lightning, it doesn't strike in a flash and disappear. It stays. Ball lightning is described as a glowing sphere of light that usually appears during or just after thunderstorms. Witnesses have reported seeing these floating orbs in colors like orange, red, yellow, blue, and even bright white. Some were said to be as small as a golf ball, while others appeared closer to the size of a beach ball. And instead of shooting downward like a bolt, these glowing balls often hover, drift through the air, crackle softly, and in some reports, even move through windows or walls. What makes this so bizarre is that it can last for several seconds, which is extremely unusual for any kind of lightning. One of the biggest reasons scientists struggled to study it is because it happens so rarely and seldom under controlled conditions. For centuries, many people thought it was exaggerated, imagined, or simply misunderstood. But that skepticism took a hit in 2014, when some lucky scientists in China captured a possible case of ball lightning on camera during a thunderstorm. Even with that, nobody can fully explain how it forms. Some theories suggest it may come from ionized air or vaporized silicon from the ground after a lightning strike, but no single explanation has been proven. So, if you ever do happen to encounter ball lightning, your best option is likely to keep your distance, at least until scientists figure out what it actually is. Godzillus, the mysterious creature. Now, before you think about the mutated monster awakened by nuclear radiation, this Godzillus is something far stranger because it's real, ancient, and scientists still can't fully explain what it is. This fossil was uncovered in 2011 by amateur paleontologist Ron Fine from Dayton. And what he pulled out of the ground was not some neat dinosaur bone or ant-known sea creature. It was a huge, odd-looking fossil weighing around 150 pounds, stretching about 6 feet long and 3 feet wide, with a shape that looked more like a row of giant stone slabs than anything once alive. What makes it even more bizarre is its age. Experts estimate it to be around 450 million years old, which means it existed in a time when that region was still covered by a shallow ancient sea. According to geologist Carl Brett from the University of Cincinnati, it may be the largest fossil from that era ever removed from the Cincinnati area. And yet, after all that, nobody can say exactly what it was. Some think it may have been a form of ancient kelp or seaweed. Others have suggested it could be the remains of a giant sponge. But even scientists have admitted they're not sure. And that's what makes Godzilla so fascinating. Something this large, this old, and this unusual was found in plain sight, and it still doesn't fit neatly into anything we know. Dumbarton, the canine suicide point. When we humans get depressed and broken, whether by breakup, bad decisions, or the quiet weight of life itself, at least we can speak about it. Dogs can't, which is what makes this story feel so deeply unsettling. In Dumbarton, a stone bridge became the center of a mystery after several dogs reportedly jumped to their deaths from the same side and almost the exact same spot. One of the most disturbing cases involved a woman watching her own dog suddenly leap over the bridge's parapet and fall nearly 40 feet below. There was no obvious reason or explanation. And it wasn't just one dog. Enough similar incidents happened for the bridge to gain the chilling nickname, the canine suicide point. That phrase alone is enough to make people uncomfortable, especially because experts strongly reject the idea that dogs intentionally end their own lives. Doreen Graham of the Scottish SPCA said plainly, "Dogs do not commit suicide." Still, something super unusual was clearly happening there. Animal behaviorist Joyce Stewart suggested the dogs may have been misled by the landscape. From their angle, the tree canopy beyond the bridge may have looked like solid ground, creating a deadly visual illusion. It's one of the only explanations ever offered, but even that has never fully settled this disturbing mystery. Beacon animal rain, the mind-boggling phenomenon. This is one of those weird phenomena that makes you wonder, how on holy earth is this even possible? But believe it or believe it not, animal rain is a real thing, and it's not something from folklore or a bad disaster movie. From time to time, people in different parts of the world have reported fish, frogs, and other small creatures falling straight from the sky. And no, not one or two. In some cases, hundreds have been found scattered across roads, rooftops, and fields. One of the most famous places for this is Lloro, Honduras, where locals have witnessed what they call lluvia de peces, or rain of fish, so often that it became part of the town's identity. The most accepted explanation is surprisingly simple, at least on paper. During violent weather, and especially waterspouts or powerful storm systems, small animals living in shallow water can be sucked into the air and carried for miles before being dropped somewhere completely unexpected. That would explain why most of these incidents involve light animals like fish or frogs. Still, not every case fits neatly. Some have happened with no nearby water, no obvious storm, or under conditions that make the whole thing even harder to explain. The fungus that turns ants into zombies. One of the creepiest things on this planet is the fact that nature has already figured out mind control, and it's been using it on ants for millions of years. This nightmare begins with a parasitic fungus called Ophiocordyceps. It releases spores into the air, and when one lands on the body of an unlucky ant, the real horror starts. The fungus slowly invades the ant's body, spreading through its muscles and taking over its movements. And somehow, it doesn't need to destroy the ant's brain to do it. Instead, it hijacks the ant like a biological puppet. At a certain point, the infected ant leaves its colony and begins climbing vegetation, often to a very specific height, where temperature and humidity are ideal for the fungus to survive. Once it reaches the perfect spot, it clamps its jaws onto the underside of a leaf or stem in what scientists call a death grip. The bite is so strong that it can leave visible marks in the plant itself. Then the ant dies. But the fungus is just getting started. A stalk eventually grows out of the ant's head and releases fresh spores onto the forest floor below, where more ants can be infected. And somehow, the worst part is this: the ant may not be brain dead while it's happening, which means it may be trapped inside its own body the entire time. Now, let's be very honest. What's scarier than this? Diamond rain on other planets. Some planets don't just have bad weather, they have weather that would make Earth look embarrassingly basic. Scientists believe that on Neptune and Uranus, it may literally rain diamonds. Not tiny glittery specks either, but actual diamonds forming deep inside the planets under conditions so violent they barely feel real. Both planets contain large amounts of methane, and under the crushing heat and pressure found far below the atmosphere, that methane gets torn apart. The hydrogen separates, leaving behind carbon, and when carbon gets squeezed hard enough, it turns into diamond. That means somewhere inside those frozen giant worlds, solid diamond may be falling through the darkness like alien hail. And this isn't just theory pulled from space fantasies. Scientists have actually recreated similar conditions in a lab using powerful lasers and managed to produce tiny nanodiamonds. Well, as weird as it sounds, there may be entire layers of these planets where the forecast is basically a diamond storm. The animal that rewrites its own genetic code. Most living things are stuck with the biology they're born with. Octopuses apparently did not accept that rule. These animals can do something so bizarre, it still sounds half-fictional. They can edit parts of their own RNA, which is basically the working copy of genetic instructions used by cells to function. And that means instead of waiting for evolution to slowly make changes over thousands or millions of years, octopuses can make certain adjustments while they're alive. That is not normal. One of the strangest examples happens in cold water. Scientists found that when temperatures drop, octopuses can alter RNA in their nerve cells, helping their nervous system keep working properly in the cold. In other words, they don't just endure the environment, they start rewriting themselves to deal with it. And they do this especially heavily in the brain and nervous system, which may help explain why octopuses are so absurdly intelligent, adaptable, and difficult to compare with almost anything else in the animal kingdom. The weird catch is that these edits usually don't get passed down to their offspring. So each octopus has to make those changes for itself. That means every one of them is basically born with the hardware, then starts editing the software on its own, which is a very strange thing for a sea creature to be doing in silence. Blood Falls, Antarctica's bleeding glacier. Nothing looks right about seeing what appears to be blood pouring out of a glacier, and yet, in Antarctica, that's exactly what Blood Falls looks like. Spilling from the side of the Taylor Glacier, this eerie red stream was first discovered in 1911, and for a long time, nobody really understood what they were looking at. At first, scientists thought the color came from red algae, but the truth turned out to be far stranger. Hidden beneath the glacier is an ancient saltwater reservoir that has been trapped for around 2 million years. Because the water is very salty, it stays liquid even in Antarctica's brutal cold. It's also loaded with iron, and when that iron-rich water reaches the surface and hits oxygen, it begins to rust, turning the outflow a deep blood-red color. Even more odd, scientists found microbial life living down there in total darkness, surviving without sunlight or oxygen, which means underneath one of the coldest places on Earth, life found a way anyway. The ice that actually burns on ice. Even a kindergarten kid knows that ice is supposed to do one job: cool things down. So the idea of it catching fire sounds totally ridiculous. But this is real, and scientists call it methane hydrate, though most people know it by the far better name, fiery ice. It looks like any ordinary ice, but inside it, the water molecules form tiny crystal cages that trap methane gas, the same flammable gas used in stoves and heating systems. Once that icy structure is warmed or the pressure around it drops, the methane escapes. If you put a flame near it, the ice starts burning. That alone sounds fake, but it gets stranger. Huge natural deposits of this material have been found deep beneath the ocean floor, usually more than 500 meters below sea level, where pressure is intense and temperatures stay low. It has also been found in permafrost regions and under some cold mountain environments. Japan has taken this seriously enough to treat it as a possible future energy source. In fact, Japanese offshore tests successfully extracted gas from methane hydrate in 2013, then marking the first time in history that gas was produced from offshore methane hydrate deposits. So yes, there is such a thing as ice that burns. Well, Hope you found this video interesting. Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.